Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei Alex, das Ereignisfernsehen. Wir sind heute für euch auf dem Tech Open Air, dem ersten interdisziplinären Technologiefestival in Europa. Die Bedingungen heute könnten gar nicht besser sein. Die Sonne lacht, die Leute sind bestens aufgelegt, aber es geht natürlich in erster Linie um die Inhalte. Uns erwarten heute internationale Speaker und Acts aus den Bereichen Technologie, Musik, Kunst und Wissenschaft.
2500 Besucher werden dieses Jahr auf dem Tech Open Air erwartet. Wo sich hier in der alten Teppichfabrik vor ein paar Jahrzehnten noch Garn auf Faden gelegt hat, verbinden sich jetzt Ideen und Kreativität. Berlin präsentiert sich wieder mal als Schmelztiegel der Ideenfindung. Und apropos Schmelzen, bevor uns viel zu heiß wird, freuen wir uns, euch auf eine kleine Tour auf das diesjährige Tech Open Air mitzunehmen.
Im Grunde genommen wollen wir eine Plattform schaffen für interdisziplinären Wissenstransfer und Kollaboration. Das klingt jetzt erstmal recht technisch, aber das ist mal in wenige Worte gefasst. Letztendlich wollen wir um das Thema Technologie herum verschiedene Disziplinen gruppieren, die sich austauschen, die im Dialog miteinander stehen. Und das kann die Kunst sein, die Musik, die Wissenschaft, die Politik. Alles Bereiche, die eigentlich von der Technologie komplett transformiert und auf den Kopf gestellt werden momentan. Und wir wollen eben diese Plattform schaffen, damit die Welt verändern mit Technologie und die diese Bereiche verändern, auf die treffen, die aus diesen Bereichen kommen, die praktisch Alteingesessenen, die Platzhirsche aus diesen Bereichen, die oftmals auch wirklich völlig überrannt werden von der Schnelllebigkeit des Wandels. Und dafür wollen wir eben diese Plattform schaffen.
Und ich meine, ihr organisiert das Ganze jetzt schon zum 3. Mal. Was hat sich seitdem verändert? Wie hat sich das Festival
Also ich würde sagen, es ist natürlich gewachsen, was jetzt mal so die Besucheranzahl angeht, was die Satelliten-Events am zweiten Tag angeht. Das ist vielleicht auch noch mal zu erwähnen. Am zweiten Tag gibt es eben der ganzen Stadt verteilt Satelliten-Events. Die werden selbst organisiert von der Community, von Firmen, Unternehmen, Universitäten, wissenschaftlichen Einrichtungen wie das Max-Planck oder das Fraunhofer-Institut. Und die auch übrigens kostenlos sind. Da kann also jeder hingehen und sich inspirieren lassen und lernen. Ich sag mal, also dieser Dimension her ist es natürlich gewachsen. Ich glaube, es ist auch wirklich stark interdisziplinärer noch geworden. Wir kommen aus der Startup- und Technologie-Ecke eigentlich und deswegen war das erste Jahr noch sehr stark von diesen Themen geprägt. Und jetzt im 3. Jahr sehen wir schon, was die Inhalte angeht, dass es sehr viele wissenschaftliche Themen da sind, dass sehr viele Themen auch aus der Kunst und der Musik dazu gekommen sind und das freut uns sehr.
Letztes Jahr war ja euer thematischer Schwerpunkt Retrofuturismus. Dieses Jahr geht es hauptsächlich um Hardware. Ja. Wie äußert sich das denn im Programm?
Wir versuchen, das Thema natürlich inhaltlich unterzubringen. Und Hardware ist toll, weil es greifbar ist. Es ist haptisch, man kann es anfassen, man kann es sehen. Wir haben ja auch eine Hardware-Area.
Neben mir sitzt ein Mann, Robert Böhme, der buchstäblich hoch hinaus möchte. Robert, was hat es denn mit eurem Projekt auf sich? Erklär doch mal ganz kurz, worum geht es?
Also ich bin ein Part-Time-Scientist und wir sind ein Team von 70 Wissenschaftlern und Ingenieuren, die in weniger als 2 Jahren einen Rover zum Mond schicken wollen.
Wie kommt man auf so eine Idee? Ist das ein Herzenstraum, ein Kindheitswunsch von dir gewesen?
Also ich würde gerne sagen, dass ich vor 10 Jahren schon auf die Idee gekommen wäre, aber die Realität ist Tatsache, dass es ein Preisgeld von Google dafür gibt. Und die Jungs haben gesagt, wir geben demjenigen 30 Millionen US-Dollar, der halt als erster privat einen Rover auf den Mond schickt. Der Rover soll dann dort 500 Meter fahren und HD-Videos zur Erde schicken. Und ja, das ist halt ein Wettbewerb, den gibt's. Und darauf haben wir uns dann halt beworben, dass wir da teilnehmen können. Und wir haben als 18. Team angefangen teilzunehmen und sind jetzt mittlerweile unter die Top 5 Teams gekommen.
Und was ist da die Motivation hinter diesem Preis gewesen, zu sagen, man hat ein privat finanziertes Team und das baut einen Rover, den schicken wir auf den Mond? Ich meine, es gibt ja so Institutionen wie die NASA oder die Europäische Weltraumvereinigung. Warum ein privates Team?
Ja, genau. Also das, was die Jungs von der NASA machen, ist absolut top. Das ist aber sogenannte Forschung. So, Forschung ist super wichtig, vor allem auch im Weltall. Was aber zurzeit halt fehlt in der Raumfahrt, ist so die private Initiative. Also wirklich, wie soll man das beschreiben? Wenn du jetzt eine Idee hättest, irgendwas im Weltall zu machen, du hättest keinen Weg, es zu tun. Und genau das ist das, was die Jungs von Google gesehen haben. Du selber dir fehlen zurzeit einfach sowohl die finanziellen, aber auch die technologischen Möglichkeiten. Und das eine kommt durch das andere, weil halt die Technik fehlt, weil es halt nicht mal eben einfach so möglich ist, ein bisschen dein Laptop ins All zu schicken und damit irgendwas Tolles zu machen. Sind das Dinge, die entwickelt werden müssen. Und da gibt es halt ein großes Defizit und das haben die Jungs von Google gesehen. Und die Idee hinter dem Preisgeld ist halt, dass viele Leute die Probleme nehmen, die wir in der Raumfahrt haben, und dafür neue Lösungen entwickeln. Was mir persönlich sehr wichtig ist, ist, dass wir mit unserer Mission nicht nur technologischen Grundstein liefern, sondern die Inspiration, dass mehr Leute mehr wagen. Also ich meine, ich bin jemand, ich komme nicht aus der Raumfahrt. Und ich versuche mich in der Raumfahrt und wir stellen uns da eigentlich gar nicht mal so schlecht an. Und ich möchte, dass mehr Leute sagen, okay, hey, ich habe hier meinen 8-Stunden-Job am Tag und ich mache was weiß ich bin Webdesigner oder auch was weiß ich, Bäcker. Aber ich habe halt eine Begeisterung für das Thema und dass derjenige sich dann trotzdem die Möglichkeit findet, da einzubringen. Und natürlich ganz konkret möchten wir halt auch den Leuten die Möglichkeit geben, dass sie zum Beispiel auch mal den Rover steuern können. Zum Beispiel so eine Möglichkeit. Da haben wir auch schon Vorkehrungen getroffen, dass du sagst, okay, wir geben den Leuten mal die Möglichkeit, über das Internet mal auch so einen Rover zu lenken oder einfach sie teilhaben zu lassen. Wir haben unsere Hell Yeah at Rocket Science Kampagne, mit der wir so ein bisschen die Leute so Begeisterung versuchen zu wecken für das Thema Raumfahrt. Und wenn du da im Internet schaust, wirst du halt viele Leute finden, die halt jetzt schon, wie sie sich halt einbringen können. Also viele Wege, die wir da halt mal machen, wo wir Leuten halt auch sehr offen zeigen. Die Raumfahrt ist ja nicht sehr offen. Also normalerweise, wenn du dir anguckst, siehst du im Weltall, dass immer nur was passiert, dass mal ein Start war. Aber du kriegst halt vorher nicht so viel mit. Und wir wollen halt richtig mit Offenheit rangehen, um einfach diese Begeisterung zu wecken und Ingenieure von morgen zu motivieren.
My name is Guy Galonska. I am a founder of Infarm, which is a startup here in Berlin dealing with indoor farming and growing your own food. On a technical level, we basically develop, design and build growing systems. So that means, for example, we did one growing system for the new 25 Hours Hotel on the Bikini Bow. There they have a system growing herbs for the kitchen on the 10th floor. We also doing now a growing system for Contemporary Food Lab and Katz Orange in Prenzlauer Berg. That's more of a bigger scale, like restaurants and hotels. On the other side, we just finished a crowdfunding campaign for a small foldable microgreen greenhouse. Microgreen is just small plants, basically, similar to Sprossen auf Deutsch. And it basically started with a necessity. We came to Berlin in winter, and we've been exploring a bit about hydroponics, which is the method we use to grow plants. And we all come from Israel, and we came to live here, and we all really missed the, herbs, fresh vegetables, and we just started growing them in our living room, and we understood that there is a potential here, and there is demand. So this is how it started, and from there we rolled on. We had a project in the Prinzessengärten in Moritzplatz, where we grew also microgreens, and now we have our first indoor farm in Berlin.
Okay, and you mentioned before that you want people to grow their food themselves, and would you see yourself as a social entrepreneur?
I would say there is a social component to what we do, for sure, but it's not necessarily this. I mean, part of what we do is education and getting people involved and doing it by themselves, DIY style. But at the same time, we design products that we want people to buy. I think it's a good combination, because then I'm telling to people, yeah, I'm doing this and this. You can buy it, but you can also just build it yourself, and here's how we do it. So you have the choice. And I think people appreciate it as well.
You are the co-founder of the biggest crowdfunding platform. So what was your motivation behind that?
Yeah, so when I started Indiegogo with my two co-founders back in January 2008, we had actually come together in 2006, and I had actually been working on the problem of inefficient access to capital since long before that. And so I actually grew up child of two small business owners and watched them suffer and struggle to grow their business because they never could access a loan. I went into finance to understand money and quickly started failing at accessing capital for other creative ideas like film projects and theatrical projects because I didn't know how to access capital. And so I basically grew up around this problem and pain point around inefficient access to capital. And so went back to business school to start a company that would democratize access to capital and finance and literally put the power back in the hands of the people to decide what ideas should come to life and what shouldn't. And with that, we started Indiegogo. My co-founders had struggled themselves with finance and fundraising. And this January 2008, the word crowdfunding didn't really exist, so we were just trying to prove this concept of online funding through your social network and extended network. And now we're the largest global platform. All ideas are coming to life, from gadgets and hardware and bakeries and films and music albums and charities and causes and urban gardens, you name it. If someone wants to bring something to life that costs money, they're using Indiegogo to raise money to go do it.
Recent polls have shown that people are actually feel kind of distanced due to all this Web 2.0 coming on with Facebook, and that in some kind of way it also tears people apart. Would you say that with crowdfunding, people actually feel that they can be part of something, creating, so they want to be part to a certain community, so that they can actually help people to become or achieve a certain goal?
Yeah, Indiegogo fundamentally is connecting people. When we coach campaign owners on how to raise money and how to get their idea off the ground, we tell them don't ask for money. Instead, invite people into the ideation and creation process. Because really what Indiegogo is a mechanism and a hub for people to come together, all unified by the same passion, to come together and get that idea off the ground. And so I actually recently gave a talk at Wisdom 2.0 about this concept of authenticity. And what I think we're really doing is we're putting authenticity back into finance, which is two ideas that we never thought ever went together. But if you think about it, when finance was born, hundreds of years ago, when somebody funded something, it was over a handshake, right? There wasn't technology, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't even phones. It was just two people agreeing to trust each other. I'll give you money and you'll pay me back later, or you'll, offer your returns, etc. And so you had that ability to look somebody in the eye. And so with technology, though, and with the internet and things like that, we've abstracted away from that person-to-person connection. So things like put your money into mutual funds, where it's basically you're hiring somebody else to take your money and invest it for you. You don't have that personal connection anymore. And as a result, there's a lot of people out there that don't trust investing. People like my mother. She doesn't trust the public equity markets because she can't look somebody in the eye and know that they're going to take her money and do good work with it and make their best efforts. And so what Indiegogo is doing is we're actually putting trust back into the equation, putting authenticity back into the financing equation, and allowing people to connect directly and come together and make ideas happen, whether it's you're involved as the leader of the project or you're involved as a funder helping make it happen.
My name is Katerina. I'm from Bulgaria, but I've been living in Germany for 5 years now, and I work on a project for people with eating disorders like anorexia and bulimia for the last 2 years.
And how does it work exactly?
We are creating an app to make the therapy for people with anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating, to make it more easier and more efficient. Like, this is the vision, is to help them get healed easier and in a more efficient way. So we implement a couple of elements in the therapy. On the one side, we replace the paper food diaries, which they have to fill out every day, with digital ones. And on the other side, we have motivational techniques and tips and tricks for difficult situations and how to deal with these. So these are different approaches to support the therapy process.
And what inspired you to create this app? What was your motivation?
I was anorexic myself years ago, and I had the idea years ago of how I could tackle these challenges which I experienced on my own and create a solution for that. And during my studies in communication science, I could write my master thesis about the project and like develop the concept. And this is when it started again. There is like a lot of opinions say that it's the media coverage and the way that women and body image is presented in the media which leads to eating disorders. But actually there are like many more reasons, and it's not only media, it's also the family situation, it's also the self-confidence and the dealing with stress and stressful situations. So eating disorders are not a new thing, they weren't invented in the last 20 years. But of course all these factors play a role. Influence at school, communication with other people, media as well, but also all these other things.
Okay, and I mean, you're also a non-profit organization. Would you consider yourself as being a social entrepreneur? Or if yes, what does it mean for you to be a social entrepreneur?
Yeah. It is like social entrepreneurship is a very interesting topic because it's more than just, okay, let's be a charity and let's say that we're gonna talk to foundations and get grants and this is gonna be the only way that we can finance ourselves. So we're trying to find a way to actually be sustainable on a financial level, which in our case, like we don't want to sell the app to users because this is the idea that it is easier to access and that it supports the young girls and boys during the therapy. But we're trying to find ways to get finance through different channels. And for me, this is like social entrepreneurship is when you tackle challenges in the society, but not only by depending on donations, but also trying to find an entrepreneurial way to be a successful and a sustainable project. So this is what we're trying to do.
And if
my name is Bue. I come from Iceland and I'm a product designer. Also with a background in psychology, which was, I have a double bachelor degree, one in product design and another one in psychology. My biggest project has been involved in insect eating and insect production, basically making new ways of producing foods with insects and also thinking about other products that they make, like fertilizer and a way of reusing organic waste, feces, human excreta, what have you. Just a new way of sustainable production, which will probably change the world.
Okay, and you built a fly factory. I saw it in your panel. Could you tell us more about this project? How did you come up with the idea?
Okay, so I read the UN report on the food crisis in Europe. So basically the thing is that we don't have any more land to produce meat, basically. And they proposed that we would use insects as a protein-rich source in feeding humans. So from there I kind of started to come up with ideas for the production, which was like the biggest aspect, but also to think of ways in which you would get Icelandic people first to eat insects. But the factory itself basically transform organic waste into protein-rich foods. Like one of the prototyped foods was larvae pate. And the feces from the larvae is then used, drained and used to fertilize soil to produce plants or spices or whatever can grow in a fertile soil. So basically the fly factory was a showpiece. So it was more to provoke the thought and functionality of insect production. Since then I've been working on a more functional kind of way of producing insects. A big aspect of it is getting people to eat insects, and that's my kind of biggest project right now. I co-founded a company called Crowbar Protein, which is evolving energy bars made out of crickets. So that's kind of the first step of introducing insects into the Western culture, and hopefully that will be a gateway project so that in the future we will have, insect sausages and, all kinds of, insect lasagna, just like whatever you can imagine, which basically has a lot of protein in it, so to substitute meat and processed foods as, snacks. Whatever.
My name is Ben Scott. I direct a program on digital policy issues at a think tank here in Berlin called the Stiftung Neue Verantwortung.
And what was your speech about today here at the Konferenz?
Today we were talking about who owns your data. Do you own your data? Do the companies you give it to own your data? Or do the governments who get access to your data via the companies you give it to own your data? And what can you do about it if you don't like the answer? The data is owned by whoever you give it to. And once you've given it away, your ability to control it is relatively limited. And most people don't really have a good sense of what happens to their data when they use a service on the internet.
And do you think it's because people have like a wrong understanding of the technology of the internet, or they're not still sensitized, or they don't care simply?
I think that if you ask people, do you care about data privacy? They say yes. And if you ask people, did you actually read the terms of service that you just agreed to about how your data is going to be used? They say no. So what you have is this paradox where people are concerned about privacy, they're concerned about who controls their data, but they're more concerned about getting access to the cool thing on their phone, on their laptop right away and having it work well. So I think what's happening is people have a sense that this is the world we live in, you give your data away for commercial services, and that's just how it is, and there's not much you can do about it. And that doesn't have to be the way it is, but currently that's how people feel. They feel powerless in the face of big companies who offer valuable and useful services, but who get access to and complete control of your data once you click OK. There's definitely a big education problem, You think about it, the average 65-year-old has as much less knowledge about how the internet works than the average 25-year-old. And government is not designed to adapt quickly to fast-moving, complex technologies, and adjusting policy frameworks to match the speed of innovation is a difficult task, even if you know exactly what you're doing. And we have a big gap in terms of the capabilities of our government agencies. But that is fixable, and that it's not the first time that new technologies come along and changed how government thinks about a problem. Think about the environmental debate, and think about renewable energy, and think about the technologies that have revolutionized fossil fuel-based energy systems. Government had to learn all of that. People had to be persuaded that those things mattered. People had to be persuaded that we needed to make serious changes and adapt the way we think about a critical social issue like energy. The same thing can happen with the internet. The same thing can happen with technology policy. But citizens have to demand it, and governments have to believe that it is important for their re-election and important for their public service.
Nun bist du hier auf der Messe, die dazu da ist, dass sich Leute aus verschiedenen Branchen und Bereichen, verschiedene Akteure sich gegenseitig befruchten können. Was bringt dir denn jetzt als Part-Time-Scientist, als Rover-Ingenieur dieser Austausch hier auf dem Tech Open Air?
Ja, ich muss ganz ehrlich sagen, vor allem halt Kontakte. Also ich meine, man lernt halt viele nette Leute kennen. Leute, die einerseits, muss man auch sagen, nach Jobs suchen, aber auch andere Leute, die einen Job haben und darin was sehr Interessantes tun, was vielleicht zum Beispiel für unsere Mission nützlich sein könnte.
It's really important to get do interdisciplinary work and also just to socialize. And it has been said that the most important place in an office is around the coffee machine, because it's there where you have like people stopping from like different, coming out from our specialized research facilities, sharing knowledge, and that's where the magic happens. That's where people network, share ideas, share solutions.
It is very important because it takes you out of your bubble. Because I would say that even though I try not to, I am surrounded by people with, like for example, very strongly connected to social entrepreneurship. So it is a kind of a bubble. And here, I just met a woman who has been working in finance for like 25 years, and she gave me some inspiring thoughts just from a very different perspective. And if you want to keep your mindset wide open, you should definitely try to get in touch with people like this. And events like this are really good to do that, because otherwise you're in your own comfort zone with people from the same field.
Nun ist ja Berlin nicht unbedingt der Nabel der Welt, in vielen Dingen vielleicht schon. Warum aus deiner Sicht glaubst du denn, dass gerade Berlin so ein Anziehungspunkt für viele kreative Leute aus der Technologiebranche ist?
Was ich persönlich, ich bin selber Berliner, ich bin hier geboren und aufgewachsen, und was ich an der Stadt einfach liebe, ist, dass sie so unheimlich multikulturell ist. Und sie ist so multikulturell, dass es egal ist. Und zwar im positiven Sinne egal. Ich glaube, ich habe noch nie jemanden hier die Frage stellen hören, woher kommst du? Weil das ist einfach Wurst. Und das ist das Schöne. Und das steckt in den Leuten drin. Und das ist, weiß nicht, das mag ich persönlich einfach an dieser Stadt. Und ich glaube, das macht es halt auch aus dann.
So yeah, it's very open for experiments on all levels, social experiments, technological, practical. And at the same time, it's quite cheap. So I can do things easily, more easily than if I would in London, for example.
I think the first time I came to Berlin was 10 years ago, and I was just flabbergasted and floored by how much creativity was here, how much innovation was here, how much of free spirit was here. Maybe it was from the many years of being of East Berlin, for example, being behind the wall, and it was just this pent-up creativity that needed to come out, but this was 16 years after that. So I was just impressed. I think it goes back to that human beings at our very core and very nature. We're creative beings, we're innovative, we like to think differently. And when you've got a city like Berlin that brings so many cultures together, it's that diversity is a catalyst for that creativity to come out.
Ja, mein Gott, wie schnell so ein Tag dann auch vorbeigehen kann. Und ich finde, David, wir haben heute echt eine Menge gelernt und gemacht. Wir haben mit Speakern gesprochen, mit den Organisatoren, vieles und vor allem Neues über Kreativität, Technologie und Innovation gelernt. Und ich finde, wir machen das jetzt, wie es sich im Jahre 2014 standesgemäß gehört. Ein kleines Selfie. Moment. Und ich bin normalerweise nicht so für Eigenlob, aber ich finde, dass dieses Selfie extrem gut gelungen ist. Und David, ich habe gerade vergessen, wo kann man sich das Ganze nochmal angucken?
Ja, wenn ihr das Ganze nochmal eurer Oma oder eurer Mutti zeigen wollt, ist das überhaupt kein Problem. Die Links für YouTube und Facebook findet ihr hier unten in der Box eingeblendet. Wir bedanken uns bei euch und machen uns jetzt vom Acker. Tschüss.
Tschüss, bis zum nächsten Mal. Macht's gut.